conversation going. The book is proposing a step-by-step process for building our zeal. We've all used a step-by-step process in our lives at some point or another. What is the benefit, do y'all think, of is there? What is there difference between a step-by-step process towards a goal or just a general do this thing and you figure out how to do it? Okay, it feels more manageable. Smaller chunks, smaller goals, great. Okay, this feels more obtainable, right? What do y'all think about the end result of those two things?
Better think about building something like if we built a TV stand from, and if we didn't have the instructions, there's no telling what it would look like.
Yeah, you just had a picture. Do this thing, okay? Yeah, you're right. Usually the outcome is much more standardized. It's more consistent, right? It's the desired result rather than maybe what you end up with in the long run, right? So is there a benefit to following step-by-step directions over a general outline when you're trying to get a specific outcome? Yeah, I think so too. Have you ever done this in your life where you seek to make something, create something, and you follow a process rather than something ambiguous? Yeah.
Even just this time of year with like goals and stuff. Like I've found for me personally, if I take the time to actually write down like the overhead goal, but then say like, okay, this is what step 1 is, step 2, step 3, like you have momentum and direction to actually carry you towards what you're doing instead of just a haphazard hope that you get there. So that helps.
Yeah. Has anybody ever written SMART goals in here? Y'all know what those are? Very specific, very manageable, measurable, time-oriented. Yeah, you write those, and then you write incremental goals to get there. So you can check, hey, I'm supposed to be here at this point. Am I here or not? And it's a building process. Yeah, it feels much more manageable and doable. Braden?
One of those things that, like, you got to focus on what you can control. It's the whole concept, I think. Like, you can't control the outcome by focusing more on the outcome if you're kind of avoiding the steps on the way. And so, like, I think about stuff just even like business planning as a financial advisor. That's, it's like, yeah, I can write down, hey, I want to bring in X number of millions of dollars this year. Really nice.
Sure.
But I even think about that now, like, I have several like workbook ideas and sermon ideas and article. Like, there's all this stuff that's out there, and sometimes it's very generic. It's like, yeah, I really want to do that, and that would be great. So I think about what areas of your life, like, man, if I, would think about implementing a consistent product. I'm going to spend these hours on this and that. Do it this way. Just standardized, I think was the word you used.
It was.
Just standardize, everything so that you can check something controllable every day, and as you do that, you become more incrementally close to the outcome.
Right. I think the answer is all areas, right? There's not really anything in our life that could not be made better by implementing a process for improvement. Everything. Yearly goals, business, financial outcomes, Christianity, right? Your spiritual walk, and that's really what we're going to be working towards tonight. By way of review, we talked about this. Defining zeal is to be hot or heat, to be jealous, to seek something eagerly and desire it. We talked about how it is similar to developing a physical fire. You require components for that. A heat or spark, fuel, in this case wood. The right kind of environment. Is it going to damp outside? Is it littered with stones and things that's not going to burn very well? And how that's comparable to our spiritual fire as well. We need the right source of heat. In this case, God. We need the right kind of fuel, which is the character of Christ that we're trying to emulate. We need the right environment, a pure, holy place to build our fire and really sustainably keep it going over the years as we continue to live for Christ. Let's go to Titus 2. This has been a verse that we've read a few times throughout this study. Titus 2. And if I could have someone read 11 through 14. Yes.
For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, training us to renounce ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age, waiting for our blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness, and to purify for himself a people for his own possession, who are zealous for good works.
So Jesus came to bring grace and salvation and to seek citizens of the kingdom, to be zealous for good works. God desires people who are zealous for him and are people of action to show their zealousness through their works. That's what he desires for each of us, to be model citizens of his kingdom. And he sent Jesus for that very reason. Jesus here, we see this as he is out preaching and teaching and recruiting and making disciples and making apostles, that he is seeking people and helping develop their zeal to serve God. And it didn't start when Jesus came into this world, and it didn't start when he was 30 years old. It started in the beginning, when the foundation was laid on the day when sin was out there, and that plan was starting to be revealed, and God's law was put in place to help lead people in the direction they need to go to seek Christ, right? So, Jesus here, when we see him, and we're going to talk about this in the sense of seeking after Peter today, he didn't just go about and randomly, okay, I'm going to try this process for Zeal today, and tomorrow I'm going to try this other process. It was incremental, it was purposeful, and it was focused on people and how to build them up for God, okay? When we're creating a physical fire, there are step-by-step processes we have to do. We can't start at the end where we stir up some coals. You got to start at the beginning. And so that starts with preparing a place. Okay, you are digging a fire pit. You're removing stones. You're removing anything that could put that fire out. Okay, you are igniting a spark. You are arranging the firewood. You are going from tinder, which will light something really small, to larger logs to continue to build that fire over time. It's a growing fire, so it can be very useful. You're going to shield it from wind or rain to keep it from being extinguished. You're going to use it. The book called out s'mores, okay, which is great. I love s'mores, but there's a lot of other things you can cook over fire too. And you're going to use it effectively for food or for warmth and whatever you need. You're going to share it, okay? No one goes camping and sits around their own personal fire. It's a communal event. And so you're all sitting around the fire together, sharing that experience. You're going to tend it. You're going to need to keep adding logs. You're going to need to stir things around to move some of the cold coals back in so they can reignite, right? And so this is a process that you use to keep that fire going all night long, or ever how longer you need it. I went backpacking several years ago in New Mexico. It was, I'm not kidding, 5 degrees that night, okay? And so we built a fire in an effort to stay warm throughout the night, but none of us set alarm clocks to wake up and keep it going. So that morning we got up, we were frigid. It was absolutely miserable. We did not tend that fire. We didn't follow the process to keep it going for as long as we needed it to. Okay, you've got to use it. Building a spiritual fire follows generally the same steps, and we see Jesus doing this, okay? And it starts with preparing the zeal, okay? How did Jesus go about preparing the apostles? Those processes that he created and put in place to lead people to him. What was one of those key pieces that was out there and active before he even started? The old law, yeah. The old law was designed to do what?
It's a shadow of things to come.
Yeah. Pointed out your sins and the need for a sacrifice to remove those sins. The bulls and goats couldn't do that, but it showed that something was coming that could. And so it should have prompted the people to be thinking about that and what is a better way that the new covenant could replace the old, right? Who was out there preparing the way? John the Baptist. John was sent to prepare the people for the coming Messiah. And so God and Jesus put these plans in place to lay the foundation to lead people to Christ. And we see it worked, right? When John is out there baptizing, let's see if I can remember where this was. I think it was in John. In John 3, there's verse 22. After these things, Jesus and his disciples came into the land of Judea, and there he remained with them and baptized. And John was also baptizing in Aenon near Salem, because there was much water there, and they came and were baptized. For John had not yet been thrown into prison. Now there arose a dispute between some of John's disciples and the Jews about purification. And then they talked about that, about how Jesus is out there doing some of the same work. And John makes this point in verse 30, he must increase, but I must decrease. There was a point in time where the way had been prepared, right? And it was time to move on to other things. John recognized that. Every piece served its purpose to build up and prepare the people for Christ to come. And now Christ was here, right? The people should have recognized it. And they were, because what were they doing? They were following Jesus. And John's multitudes were diminishing. The environment had been prepared effectively for Jesus to come, right? What are some ways that we can prepare our own hearts as we think about igniting and continuing to build zeal throughout our lives? Braden?
There's so many times that Jesus is with his apostles, one-on-one, and he's explaining the parables to them, talking about, I'm helping you to understand, this isn't being made known to everybody, you're special, you get it. And then John 15 comes, and he's telling them to love each other in John 15 and verse 12, love one another as I have loved you, greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends, for all that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you so that you will love one another. And see this whole text, and it's like, what did he do to prepare people to feel God's will? All that he heard from the Father, he's telling them. It's like they had this key insight, special insight, and then they go out and they share that again. Well, we have what we need now, and it's like the same thing. We have exactly what the Father wants revealed to us. And that's what prepared the apostles, was listening. It was hearing. It was being comfortable and maybe not completely understanding everything all at once,
right,
but having the information and the source of the information. We have that too. And so it's kind of that same process. Just listen to what's been revealed.
Yeah, that path is laid out for us in the same way that it was for them. Just need to get on and follow it. Yeah, excellent. Anybody else?
But part of the way that Jesus helped prepare was like his example, and so like taking time to be in prayer and taking time to just like, and or be in the Word and like know the Word. So simple, but
Yeah. Um, when I was thinking about this, I thought about the parable of the sower, right? So in Matthew 13, you have the parable of the sower, and a lot of times we think about this parable. Really, I guess there's two ways we think about this parable. One is that we need to be out there sowing the seed. Getting that seed out there. Get it everywhere you can, okay? Because you never know how it's going to take root. The other way is that we think about, which soil am I? Am I the good soil? Am I the thorny soil, the rocky soil, the hard soil? And the reality is that sometimes, yes, we are that. And sometimes we're all of those things at the same time, right? None of us are the perfect good soil. We hope that the word is taking root and we are growing and we're active and we are doing those things. But we need to constantly be examining our life. Is there a thorn there that I need to remove? Is there a rock I need to remove? Do I need to soften in a way to allow the word to better penetrate my heart, right? This is a continual reflection and growth. None of these things are one-time things, this process that we're going to talk about. We're going to be moving through it step by step, but sometimes we need to go back to the first step and really examine and make sure, hey, my environment to build this fire is not in the best place right now. I need to dig some things out to really help it take firm hold, right? So seek out the word, eliminate the cares of the world, root out the sin, soften up our hearts so it can be receptive to the word. And tend that seed. Don't let it die out like it did in so many other soils. That's what I thought of. So. Okay, so we're preparing our zeal. Then we need to ignite it. We talked about how God is our source, right? And Jesus was the source for Peter and the apostles, right? Andrew sought out Peter. Andrew was a disciple of John the Baptist. He sought out Peter and told him in John 1:41, we have found the Messiah. And then he brought Peter to Christ. It wasn't just, I found the Messiah. I'm not going to do anything with that. He brought Peter there. And the apostles had the benefit of being physically, proximately near the Messiah and seeing an example and following him, the source that they needed, right? Matthew 1:16 and 18. As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Then Jesus said to them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Then immediately they left their nets and followed after him. Jesus invited Peter to be a part of this special work that he was doing, right? Follow me. Jesus was already out there. He was already preaching at that time. But he needed people to follow him and to continue his work after he left this earth, right? Peter responded without hesitation, right? We're going to read later there was a miracle involved, but Peter recognized what was before him, and he acted on that without hesitation, okay? And over time, we see Peter's relationship growing closer to Jesus in ways that we don't see with all the other apostles, right? Peter was part of the three, Peter, John, and James, who were there at the Mount of Transfiguration, and were there when Jairus' daughter was raised from the dead. And they were there when Jesus went into the garden and separated himself, and a group stayed here, and then these three went with him. He had a close relationship with Christ that was unique and different, okay? That is how he drew near to God. He formed a close relationship with him. How can we do that? How can we get close to God to where his zeal becomes ours? We can't be close physically to him anymore. How do we do it?
I think it was when Mark was here that he made a comment about how sometimes like the easiest way for him to get his zeal is when he just actually simplifies it and goes back to remembering why we're doing all of this, which is Jesus' resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
So just remembering like we're serving a God who rose from the dead. 68 and 69, where Jesus asks the apostles if they want to go away too after people have left, and Simon answers and said, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life, and we have believed and come to know that you are the Holy One of God. And so, if we really believe that, like, just keeping things simple and not getting so lost, like, doctrine and all that matters, but, like, sometimes it's, okay, like, do we remember, like, Jesus rose again for us, and, like, that's our purpose, is, like, spreading that good news.
Yeah. I thought of, while you were talking, 1 Corinthians 2. 1 Corinthians 1. Where Paul is talking to them about the wisdom of the world and the foolishness of Jesus, right? And how, verse 21, for since in the wisdom of the world through wisdom did not know God, it pleased God through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believe. For the Jews request a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified. To the Jews a stumbling block, and the Greeks foolishness, but to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ the power of God and the wisdom of God. The gospel message is simple, and it's simple on purpose, so that we can remain grounded in it and understand it and know it and remember it for its simplicity and not get confused with all these other things, right? When does it get complicated? When men start to insert their own things, right? And the points of doctrine you brought up, absolutely we need to know those things, because we need to fight against the doctrine of men. People who have overcomplicated things or added their own things or taken their own things out of it, right? So that we can talk about that and bring people back to the simplicity of the gospel. And if we can remember that and focus on that, yeah, that's a great way to keep drawing near and focused on him.
Colossians 2, with baptism, what happens in baptism, it's the powerful working of God who cancels this record of debt that's against us. I think all of that's interesting, but then in the next section, in verses 16 through 23, he's talking about all these reasons that men will come and try to disqualify us, or this thing that we might cling to. And I think it's interesting that at the very end of that, at the end of verse 23, he says, these have indeed an appearance of wisdom in promoting self-made religion and asceticism. I don't know how to say that. Asceticism, I think, and severity to the body, but they are of no value in stopping the indulgence of the flesh. And it's like, it's kind of what we're getting at. It's like the key is like getting down to what really matters, and that sin has separated us from God. God, through his powerful working, will bring us back into the fold when we go to him in faith. It's like that's what will keep us from the indulgence of the flesh if we want to ignite our zeal.
Yep.
Then I also think about 2 Corinthians 1, verse 3 through 5. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort which we ourselves are comforted by God. Obviously, there's a specific case that's being talked about here, but when we think about igniting our zeal, sometimes it's leaning into others. It's leaning into those who are already doing really good, because they can help light that spark that they have, because they've experienced it, they're strong, they're on fire, we can lean into that. And then the flip side of that is we're being that person for others.
Yeah, I wrote that down too, Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. A lot of times we use this verse to say, you need to go to church assembly. 100% true. But sometimes we also need to look at why. It's so that, because we have a responsibility one to another to encourage one another, strengthen one another, and help those who are struggling in some other way. And all of us are struggling at some point or another.
I think also talking with new Christians
Yep.
who've just been baptized helps a lot too, because they're normally very zealous and excited.
Yeah. And it's contagious. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Anybody else?
Piggyback that point, we've been doing
Mhm.
It's designed for kind of putting together those pieces, but it's like, wow, who's coming? You know, it's the newer Christians, it's the newer members of who haven't been Christians all that long, and it's kind of exciting to see that because it's like the conversations that they're interested in, that they want to talk. It's like that's good stuff, and it's stuff that I don't always think about because I've had the privilege of thinking about those stories my whole life.
Sure.
And this like gets new information to some of them. And it's like, wow, do you see this? And that's just it's so much feeding for me to be there and to see that. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job. Anybody else? Okay. Just watching the clock, making sure I'm not falling too far behind. Another thing I thought about was just being thankful. Remember why you were here and be thankful for that. Never take that thought for granted, right? Luke 24, you have the story of the two disciples on the road to Emmaus, right? So Jesus, this is the Sunday, Jesus rose that morning, and these disciples are walking home on their way. Remember, the day before the Sabbath, they couldn't travel anywhere. And so they were walking home and they were pondering what was happening. And Jesus appeared to them and they were talking about it. And he corrected some of their misunderstandings and talked about it all the way. And they got to Emmaus and were going to stay for the night and invited Jesus to stay with them. And they didn't recognize him all this way while he's talking. And it wasn't until verse 30, now it came to pass as he sat at the table with them that he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. And then in verse 31, they recognized who he was. Jesus, this image we have of Jesus here where he's taking bread and blessing it and being thankful for it to God, is an image we see multiple times throughout the scripture. This is who he was. He was thankful to his Father for all things. And it showed in his action, so much so that this is the thing that allowed the disciples to recognize who he was. Whether there was a supernatural component to this or not, I don't know that. But I know that this was the event that opened their eyes. Are we thankful in the same way that it shows through everything we do to God for the simplicity of the gospel, for the doctrine that we can study and understand, for the opportunities to work together and encourage one another and strengthen each other, and learn from one another too? All of these things are ways that we can draw near to God because he is our commonality, or he should be, right? Our source of unity. So, okay, anybody else on this point before we move on?
Just a thought as you were talking, I think it's interesting, like God created the church as a community and everything, and one thing that I think a lot of people sometimes maybe struggle with Zeal is knowing how to actually use their own gifts, or like even seeing their own gifts, because like when you feel like you don't have anything to offer, it's a lot harder to show up excited to offer what you have. And so one thing that we can do and like should do better at probably is like knowing each other really well, and knowing like being willing to actually be vulnerable enough to even just say, hey, like you're really good at this, I'm thankful for this in you, and like let other people like praise you, and not for like your own glory, but so you can go use that for God, because when you realize like you have something to offer in the service to the kingdom, it helps you feel like you actually have something that you can do.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the past couple of years, the elders here have done a really good job at trying to cultivate some of those gifts, giving people opportunities. Like the thing we did with the kids last year where they were learning how to lead songs. And some of them may not use that for years, but it's a stepping stone to something else. Or Kendall, you taught a class out here last summer, right? And the opportunities we had for lots of people who don't necessarily teach a lot of classes to do things like that and to build those skills. Give everyone something to do, an opportunity to be encouraged by seeing new people step into new roles, or to get feedback from other people too. Yeah, you're right. That is part of why we're here, right? So every piece can be knit together. Yeah, great. Anybody else? Okay. I'm going to try to wake that up. I did turn it on because I've been using it. Cool. Okay, so we need I don't know why that's turning on. We need to fuel our zeal, right? So if you think about, back to our example of a literal fire, you start with a small pile of kindling. Maybe you have some paper towels if you're out backpacking, something you've shoved in there to catch that spark and keep it going. But you can't start there. It's not going to be effective if the fire remains this big. You've got to add things to it. So you're going to go out and you're going to harvest some smaller twigs, and then you're going to get some sticks, and then eventually you're going to get to bigger pieces of log, right? Your fire has to grow. It has to mature for it to be effective and useful, right? Maturity takes time, and it takes patience. A lot of times if we're in a rush to build that fire so we can cook our s'mores or our hot dogs or whatever it is we're using it for, oftentimes we smother it because we're too eager, right? If you start from a small ball of fire to I'm going to dump these giant logs on it, it's going to go out. You're going to suffocate it. You've got to build it slowly over time. It's the same thing with Christianity. You can't go from being baptized to preaching every Sunday back to back. It's really hard, right? You've got to grow, and everybody grows at different rates. Someone made a comment, I don't remember, that was several weeks ago. You can't compare yourself, and you can't compare yourself to someone else. Everyone is growing at different trajectories. Some people grow at a really fast rate, depending on what they've been taught in the past. Some take more time, and we need to be patient with ourselves as we grow, right? The point is to be continually growing. We cannot stagnate. We have to be doers of the word, and that requires we're in the word to be learning in the first place. How did Peter demonstrate maturity, growth throughout his life? I think Peter's a really good example for growth. Yeah, in a matter of weeks, right? Oh. Do you have a comment or are you stretching? You see, Peter that first time, and we talked about this, Luke 5, this is when Jesus was walking by the sea and he called Peter to follow him. There's more to that story. And as we see him getting into Peter's boat to preach to the people. And he tells Peter's been out fishing all night. He's tired. He didn't catch very much. And he tells Peter here, this is Luke 5, verses 1 through 8, launch out into the deep and let down your nets to catch. But Simon answered and said to him, Master, we've toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. Peter obeyed with a little bit of complaining in a minute, right? It was obedient, but it wasn't a mature obedience. And so then when he went out and he miraculously caught all the fish to the point the nets were breaking, what did he do? At the end of verse 8, Peter saw it. He fell down at Jesus' knees and said, depart from me, for I'm a sinful man. He recognized who Jesus was. And then Jesus told him, follow me, you'll become a fisher of men, to paraphrase. Peter started out not very mature. Obedient, not full of understanding, not full of growth. And then we get to the point to where on Acts 2, he's out leading that sermon. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other stories? What were you going to say?
A couple of things come to mind. Peter's very, it's easy to go and look at that because of all the times he falls short.
Mm-hmm.
But it is just also encouraging that he is one of those closest to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a good thing for us to remember. Like, we're going to sin, we're going to fall short, we're going to mess up. It's not a disqualifier from being close with Jesus. It's all about what do we do next? What's the next step, next move? And I think about I'm going to preach in San Marcos on Sunday, and the sermon I'm writing is really about evangelism, but I think about fueling zeal. Talk about not preaching full time right after, but what's so interesting, even just in the Gospel of John, you see all of these encounters where people encountered Jesus for the first time, and it's like Andrew found the Messiah. Right after that, it's Nathaniel. Oh, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. You have the Samaritan
Yep.
woman at the well. Could this be the Christ? And it's like immediately, wherever they were at, they were immediately confessing. They were telling others. They were inviting that you come and see too. You know, it's Philip, come and see. Andrew to Simon, come and see. The Samaritan woman to her village, come and see. And then you get to the very end, and it's Thomas, and you have this whole interaction again where it's like, I'm not going to believe unless I see. Jesus shows them, and now we're able to, you know, it's explicitly written in such a way. We are able to have faith because Thomas saw it.
Right.
You know, he went and told. And it's just that consistent pattern of like, you want to fuel your zeal, well, share what you have,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll continue to grow.
Yeah. They didn't sit on it, and they didn't wait to let it grow on its own. They were actively working to get there. Yeah, that's a great point. Good. Anybody else? Okay. We need to protect it. Just like the fire has to be protected from the environment to keep it from being snuffed out, Jesus protects us, right? You think about Luke 22. Jesus, this is on the night that he's betrayed. He's talking to them about that he's going to be betrayed, and they're going to scatter. And what did Simon, how did he respond? Simon Peter. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. And then Jesus says, not only are you going to do it, you're going to deny me 3 times. Okay? He's warning Peter ahead of time. Be aware. I think the phrase he uses in Luke 22:31 is that Satan has asked for you that you may be sifted as wheat. The devil is out there seeking after all of us, and there are dangers out there we need to be aware of, right? We need to protect ourselves so that he doesn't come blow out our fires. Be aware of those dangers around us. Know what they are, and guard our hearts so that they can be protected against them, right? I find it really fascinating that Jesus continues to warn us today through the words of Peter that he wrote in 2 Peter 2, right? He's encouraging them, add to your faith all these things, and then beware of false teachers, Peter 2, right? They're bringing division. They're denying the truth of Jesus Christ, verses 1 and 2. They're bringing destruction upon themselves and anybody that follows after them. He compares them in verses 17 through 22 as an empty well or a cloud without rain, where they have the promise of something good, but it's empty and it's not helpful to anybody. It's deceptive. It brings hope, but nothing follows after that hope, right? It's all disappointment. And in chapter 3, he tells us to be diligent. Ignore those mockers. Those people are going to say, Christ isn't coming back. He is coming back. Be assured of that and be diligent to be ready for it. Peter's taking those same warnings that Jesus gave him of being watchful and passing it down. As in chapter 1, he's about to die. He knows that. His days are numbered, and he's taking every opportunity to continue to warn people to protect themselves. Yeah. Thoughts or comments before we move on from this? Yeah.
I think of, like, when we think of Peter a lot, like, it's easy to look at him and think kind of like a wildfire, but then he, like, harnesses his zeal over time, because it's never that he has a lack of, like, passion for
Right.
God. He just learns how to actually, like, focus it and point it, and I've never thought of myself that way, but, like, as we're sitting here talking through this, like, I can look back at, like, younger Riley and, like, how I approach some things and whatnot, and it's like, I can kind of see, like, that wildfire of, like, well, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm just like, whatever. But when, like, the story where Peter gets out of the boat to walk on the water with Jesus,
Yep.
like, the thing, like, he had the faith to get out, and then he gets out and he lets the waves and the wind and the storm, like, overtake him for a second, and, like, he starts to sink. And it's just a reminder, like, if you keep your eyes stayed on Jesus, and, like, Jesus wanted Peter to be okay, he reaches out, he grabs someone, he's, like, willing to do the same for us. And like Isaiah 26:3, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. So just, like, remembering when the storms of life pick up and you have to, like, protect yourself, that Jesus, like, it's simple, he does want us to be with him, and if we can just keep our, like, eyes on him and, like, keep seeking him and we can keep our
Yep.
heart in that position. Like, he's not trying to make us stumble. He's given us all things that pertain to life and godliness. So.
Yeah, and he always provides a way out. And it's his way, right? He's always there to show us and guide us out. Even when we take our eyes off, we just need to remember to turn our eyes back. Yeah, great point. Great job. Anybody else? Okay. We need to use it. We've talked about this several times already, but we can't keep it to ourselves. That's not the way the church is designed to function, right? We've got to spread our zeal to one to another, and not only within these walls, but outside to people who are outside of this church, right? Peter, after his denials, what do we see him doing 50 days later? It's the day of Pentecost, and he's out there preaching, right? Peter stood up with the 11, raised his voice and said to them, men of Judea and all who dwell in Jerusalem, let this be known to you and heed my words. They were the words of Jesus and the Holy Spirit, but Peter is the one using them, right? We need to use our zeal to reach out to other people, even after we stumble and fail. Get up, look back to Jesus, and use your zeal effectively for him, right? Have you ever noticed how your zeal changes after you do some self-reflection and realize you're not where you're supposed to be? And you're eager to get back there. Sometimes we need that moment of reflection to recognize, you know what? My fire has gone out here. I need to get it going again. And we do everything we can to get back where we're supposed to be. Yeah. Thoughts or comments? Okay. 6, we need to spread our zeal. For Peter, that day of Pentecost was only the beginning. He kept going to the point to where it led him to Rome and to martyrdom, because he was not willing to sacrifice what he knew to be right? Acts 5, 41 and 42, he was told to stop preaching, and he said, no, that's not right. He spread it, and he was an example to everyone. He encouraged the apostles, the others who were with him. He influenced people. We see that when he healed the lame man at Solomon's Gate. What did the people do? They got up and praised God because of the influence of Peter in that moment, to the point to where 1 Peter, 2 Peter are letters of encouragement, where he continues to encourage and tell people to overcome their sufferings and continue to look to Jesus because he's our example, right? And then finally, we need to continue to tend our zeal. We continue to stir those coals, keep ourselves warm, keep our fire useful to ourselves and to others every day of our life. We can't let it go out at some point. There is a tendency, I think, and it's unfortunate, this can happen to anyone, but sometimes we think about people as they get older, they think they're not useful anymore. That's not true. In Joshua, I wrote this down, where'd that go? Joshua 14, when Joshua is dividing the land, Caleb comes to him. He's 85 years old, verse 10 through 15, and he asks for the land where the Anakim are, because he wants to go beat them. These are the giants that 47 years earlier, the people wandered because they didn't think they could overcome them. Caleb said, no, we can, in that moment. And then 47 years later, he's there saying, hey, we still can do this, and I'm still going to lead the people and go do this. He was still useful. And the influence he had on his family as they all went up there and they captured those cities and those hills and ran the giants out and killed them shows that there is usefulness to God, regardless of our age, our status in life, or whatever else is happening to us. Tend your fire and keep it going, regardless of what's going on around you. Does that make sense? Okay. Any last comments? Great conversation tonight with just 6 of y'all, so good job. Okay. Thank y'all.